Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for the latest in our CloudSense Insights series of webinars. My name is Edward Chamberlain, and today we will be exploring insights from the CloudSense delivery methodology, gleaned after delivering digital transformations for more than 80 businesses worldwide in over 10 years. So the agenda for the webinar is we'll start with some introductions of our speakers and then go through some pitfalls and challenges of digital transformation programs, talk about key success factors in overcoming these challenges, and we'll finally end with an audience Q&A. So we will be taking questions at the end of the presentation, but at any point during it, if you wish to ask a question, please don't hesitate to use the Q&A function, which you should see at the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to them at the end. So before I hand over to our speakers, I'll give them a quick introduction myself. Our first speaker is Rama Syahrul. Rama is CloudSense's VP of Services for the Asia Pacific region and boasts an impressive resume with over 17 years experience helping businesses shape, plan, and execute large digital transformation programs across the telecommunications and media industries. And our second speaker is Gary Smith. Gary is CloudSense's VP of Services for the EMEA region and has worked for Deloitte, Morehouse, Cineverse, Vodafone, and more, successfully delivering business transformations in over 11 countries and for multiple clients. So I'm going to hand over first to Rama and mute myself. So take it away.
Thank you, Edward. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining our latest round of webinar. I'm very excited to share some of our insight and experience with digital transformation, and I hope that you'll find it useful and practical. So with just background context, I think since the company was founded, CloudSense has always been involved in large transformation programs. Very rarely is our platform being used for just a technology re-platform. So what does that mean? It means that in the context in which we deploy, typically involves organization creating a new foundation for the business, recognizing that they need to compete in a very rapidly changing marketplace, and therefore agility of their processes, of their products, of their architecture is paramount. It also means customers trying to build a user experience, a customer experience and user journey that is more akin to the digital age. It means seamless experience across all channels, single view of your holdings, your services, your products, your accounts, and transparency of all requests, all orders that are in progress. And then lastly is, I think time to market becomes critical, and therefore, customers are expecting that the transformation program will deliver them a new foundation that allows them to, make changes, innovate in a rapidly changing marketplace. So I think over the years, I think we've all learned that transformation programs are very challenging and very difficult. It is hard. The stats and the odds are against us. I think we've seen Forbes citing, the vast majority of transformation program fail to deliver its objectives. So what we want to spend time on this particular webinar is share a little bit of our experience in delivering these transformation. We've gone through, impressively over 80 global businesses over the past decade or so. And we want to share with you, I guess, what we think to be, the common pitfalls, some of the strategies and mitigation that CloudSense has evolved over the years to mitigate. What we'll avoid is we'll avoid covering sort of the generic commentary around delivery practices. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. I don't want to bore you to death about governance and change management and needing the right skills. I think we'll avoid those sort of motherhood statements, and we'll focus on very specific challenges that we see in CloudSense implementations, and very specific, approaches and methodology that we've implemented over the years that we think makes a difference. So with that, I think let's talk about why we think we have something of interest. I think it's because ultimately our customer tells us so. This slide shows, I guess, the latest industry analyst view of the CPQ market, and ITIG's analysis relies predominantly on the feedback of customers. And as you can see, CloudSense is again placed in the leader quadrant for delivery, both in terms of dimension of product innovation and satisfaction, and also competency of professional service and delivery. So what have we learned over the years? Let's go through some of the common pitfalls that you might have encountered yourself, but certainly these are 5 things that we have observed over the years, right? I'm sure you would recognize quite a few of these. So the first one is recreating the past. I guess how many of us has gone through programs of work where there's a lot of emphasis on providing equivalence of legacy or existing capability. We're not changing our processes, we're not changing our product and our catalog. The impact is we end up inheriting the pain points, the constraints of what was there in legacy, right? You end up building often a lot of customization. You end up building a lot of technical debt, and you hurt the overall benefit of the program, particularly, I guess, the agility and the operational efficiency, both from an IT and a business perspective. Moving to the right, technology-centric delivery is a common pitfall as well. I think a lot of IT strategy is about focusing on sourcing best of breed solution, and stitching them together, integrating them together, and to build a stack. And often the pitfall is you're focusing on individual domain that you're stitching up, and that blinkered view hopefully often creates sort of an end-to-end journey, an end-to-end process that is suboptimal, right? You're focusing on building things bottom up and then hoping that things would just magically stitch together across CRM, across self-service channel, across CPQ and order management and downstream fulfillment. The impact is typically, you see this a lot, that whilst the platforms integrates okay, right? You hit your delivery milestones, but the resultant processes, the resultant user journey are still disjointed, are still slow, right? Adoption often becomes a challenge, right? Customer experience becomes an issue later on. In the middle there, you have tracking features versus value. What do I mean by that? Most organizations would start their transformation program with a business case, but often that is put on the shelf somewhere. And over time, we've sort of lost track of the original case for investment, the original business benefit and levers that underpins the original decision to embark on the transformation. We focus on instead a backlog of features, epics, requirements, user stories, what do you want to call it, and just continue to work down the list, across many releases. Now, what does that mean? It means that potentially, often prioritization is based upon, who screams the loudest. Often, business benefit and business benefit realization plan is often an afterthought. Tracking of benefit, which we have to realize is, to ensure that the business buy-in and the user adopt, right, is often lost in the view of just trying to, go through the motion of delivering features after features. So let's talk about value tracking and what it means and how it make a difference for our customers. Single speed delivery is also a common pitfall across media and telco. I think our experience is that each platform and each layer of the architecture have its own natural pace for change. Some are very quick, some are, have very mature, agile and DevOps capacity. Others are, often very legacy, maybe managed service driven, very waterfallish interaction, changes, very rarely, and often, in a very CR driven way. So what does that mean? When you have a lot of these, I guess, myriad of different technology pieces that you're trying to work together on, the program often gravitates to align with the lowest common denominator. And often you end up with a single delivery methodology that everyone has to abide by. You end up with not being able to achieve pace layering to allow each team and each platform to develop, to iterate at their own pace. And you end up with a program plan full of critical path dependencies. Right? So we'll talk about later on, what are the strategies around enabling a multi-speed delivery, enabling a hybrid delivery methodology, and leveraging CloudSense's capability to achieve that. And then last but not least, I think it's the decision-making process. I think all of us has been, in a project or in a program of work whereby, decision can be a source of delay. And what we've seen is that, often there's a focus on technical and architectural decision-making. Every organization have their own architecture forum, architecture board, and are used to organizing and facilitating that decision-making process. But what we've seen in digital transformation is that most of the time, the critical decisions that needs to be made are business decisions. And CloudSense in particular, we don't have a single stakeholder. Our platform are typically deployed in a context whereby we have sales, we have product management, we have pricing, we have legal, we have fulfillment, service delivery, or AdOps teams, right, downstream. They're all users of the platform. They're all stakeholders of the platform. And a lot of the times, decision-making that they have to make impact across business unit. And so, if we don't have the right structure and the right empowerment, we'll talk about that a bit more, the impact is you'll get delay to your decision-making process. You'll have suboptimal decisions. Often organizations avoid making those decisions simply because it just touches so many business unit. We don't want to start the debate, or we don't want to start the war. And as a result, you get a suboptimal outcome in your transformation program. So I'm sure you're probably, some of these would resonate with you in your respective experiences. I think in the next half of this particular webinar, we'll talk about individually what are some of the strategies that we have seen useful in mitigating these pitfalls. So let's start with the first one. Let's start about how do we mitigate the risk of recreating the past. For me, I think the key word here is simplification. Right? If the underlying theme of a digital transformation is we are building a new foundation for the organization to be able to compete in the digital world, then simplification is key to ensure that that foundation is going to be agile, it's going to be flexible, it's going to take less cost to maintain and operate. And what that means is, the program will fail if we're focusing upon just simplifying technology, right? So we'll have to start with looking at the entire operating model, ensuring that processes are streamlined, ensuring that we are creating a consistent customer experience across all the channels of interactions, ensuring that the processes reflects the business model of the future. Right? It might be there might be a lot of baggage or a lot of inheritance that are no longer relevant in the digital world. And unless we unpick that and challenge the status quo, those processes will make its way back into your target operating model, into your platforms, into your technology, and we end up recreating the past. Just to quickly pick up where I left off, right? I think an example for this for us is, we've got a customer in APAC who had a product strategy and a pricing strategy that involves maintaining tens of millions of price point, right? The impact is, they have effectively an army of people that curates and maintain these pricing data. They effectively have over terabytes of data in production that needs to be controlled and maintained, and it continues to be a cost to maintain. And the vast majority of them are only used once, and yet they persist them. They continue to maintain them over the years. So these are examples whereby if we don't challenge the status quo, right, you'll replicate that exact same cost of serve, that exact same complexity in your architecture that drives very little benefit or does not align to the vision of the transformation program. So I think simplification needs to cut across all three areas. So from a technology perspective, I think the simplification is going to be, how do we create a loosely coupled architecture, right? That can respond to change, allow the organization to remove a certain component and avoid cascading impact downstream, avoid the need to regression test the entire stack whenever you make a new release of a new capability or launch product into the marketplace. And I think CloudSense as a tool allows you to build that decoupling layer, right, between the commercial facing component of your architecture and the technical facing component of your architecture. And we've helped customers achieve just that. Let's move on to the next pain point, which is technology-centric delivery, right? So I think I'll start with an example. I've got a telco customer in APAC, in my region, that that has a very large transformation program underway. It's touching key layers of BSS and OSS at the same time. They've created feature teams. They're all working in an agile manner, and they're all focusing on their respective area, right, and working through the backlog. And they're very technology focused, right? It's about features in every component of the architecture is what they're delivering. When we test and deploy capability, everything is tested, benchmarked from a performance perspective, and we're confident that the process seems to be performant, right? You can submit an order in a matter of minutes. To their surprise, when we go into production, when we actually do a ride along with a real user, we realize that if you look at the entire end-to-end process, there's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of disjointed and disparate experience where they have to go back and forth between several applications. There have been areas whereby certain aspect wasn't considered, and the entire journey takes 4-5 times as long compared to what the technical team experience in their testing environment and non-production environment. So the lesson learned here is that you got to start with the end result at the very beginning. Focus on the target customer experience from the beginning, right? And that means looking at the entire customer lifecycle and not just focusing and say, well, you're delivering a CPQ, Rama, let's just focus on order capture. Well, what that means is when it comes to upsell, when it comes to making lifecycle changes, often there's a lot of inconsistencies, gaps in the solution, gaps in the requirement that create adoption challenges, create inconsistent experience, and poor NPS score for customers. So here's an example of an end-to-end user journey, right? A customer lifecycle that captures everything from acquisition all the way to retention and growth. And we encourage our customers and partners to look at it from the very beginning, from the very get-go. I'll hand over to Gary to walk us through the rest of the pitfalls and some of the mitigation strategies.
Thanks, Rama. So just wanted to sort of pick up on some of the things which Rama was saying. What we find with clients is many of our clients are doing this journey for the first time, and it's quite a challenge for them to look to see what the essential components are of each of these outcomes. And as Rama said earlier, one of the key ones that we identify is, how do you tie this back to the business case? Because typically projects, when they get started, sort of put the business case to one side. And we believe it's absolutely crucial that we drive all the business benefit realization against the program delivery. So as we're building the product backlog, we're very clear what that benefit will be in the business case and how that will be realized. And that's a key aspect in terms of how we prioritize what gets delivered as part of the business as well, so that not too much time is spent doing the plumbing. More effort is focused on how do we deliver realizable value to the product manager and to the end user customer. So this is a key feature for how we would deliver a project. So Ed, if you can move on. So how do we do that? I mean, typically what we do with customers is we recognize, and this is one of the features of our background, we're a SaaS company. We've been involved with media and telco for 12 years. We focus on these particular sectors. We have deep understanding of the complexity of these businesses, whether they be, a Spotify or a British Telecom or a Telstra or a Maxis. We have experience of many customers across the globe, and we're experienced in delivering. So we understand that there are gated delivery mechanisms in many organizations. Some use scaled agile framework, some use waterfall, and we work with each of these organizations to try and optimize the ability to deliver quickly. So we will work in both an agile and a waterfall methodology in a hybrid way. But the key part of this is around, as Rama said earlier, making sure that we drive scope to the key things which deliver value, as opposed to just a sort of typical scope creep kind of situation that comes into projects. So as we push this forward, we try and do this as a sort of typically an MVP kind of model, using agile wherever we can to try and deliver value early and to show to the customers very quickly how we can deliver different ways of doing what they've typically done in their legacy environment. As somebody sort of typically says, when you start a digital transformation, you normally don't want to start from where you're at, because it's very hard in a legacy organization to get to that destination North Star where you want to be. This is where startup businesses have an advantage, because they don't have that legacy. And our activity is around how do we mitigate that legacy by simplifying, as Rama said, and delivering out-of-the-box solutions from the way that CloudSense operates. So if you move on, Ed, thank you. So how do we typically do that? That's sort of through the planning, decision-making, and delivery side of it. And that's really, again, echoing Rama, that it's important that all of the stakeholders are involved in this. And it's done as a business transformation program, not a technology transformation program. Clearly we're delivering technology transformation as a byproduct of this, but that's the way it should be looked at. Is it's not a shiny delivery program putting a new bit of technology in. It's actually, how do we deliver business value? How do we make sure that each of the activities we're doing are making a fundamental difference to the business moving forward? And that's around simplifying processes, simplifying the product model, making sure that these products can be delivered to customers rapidly, and it ties in with the legal side of it in terms of contract management and how that links to fulfillment within the rest of the systems. So just move on again, Ed, because I'm cognizant of the time on this. So really, in terms of sort of summarizing where we're at on the program, what we're saying is it is very, very easy to recreate the past if you don't manage the program based on business benefit realization. You have to put simplification into your programs, and that means make sure that we're not trying to deal with features, we're actually dealing with benefits. It needs to be customer centric rather than technology centric. And we're driving this for a business benefit, not just to bring a shiny bit of technology in. We have to track that to the benefits. We have to make sure that we are operating in a complex environment, whether it's media or telecoms, where you end up with lots of existing legacy systems. Not all of them are going to be transformed at the same time as the CPQ side of it. So we do have edged cases where we've got to work with different systems, which are some even 20, 30 years old. And some of our clients may be significantly older than that. But we can work through that by using different delivery methodologies. And in terms of how we make that happen, it's around, Rama mentioned we're not going to talk much about governance, but governance is a key factor in this around stakeholder management and making sure that we are delivering the right thing for the stakeholders at the right time. And in summary, what we're saying is it is a challenge, but it's a doable challenge in terms of, we've done this for 80 customers across the globe over the last 12 years, and it's not because people do this wrong that they get it wrong. It's because they lose focus on what drove them to do transformation in the first place, which is around changing the business, not so much the technology. So that's kind of the key message I would leave on this one. Back to you, Ed, I think.
All right, well, thank you, Rama and Gary, for that presentation. We are coming to the end of the half an hour, but I do think we can squeeze in a couple of questions that have come through. So let me just relay them here. So here's one. How would you ensure end user stroke business adoption after a transformation? How does that fit into the process to ensure that?
I can have a go if I may, Gary.
Go ahead.
I think the critical part is to ensure that the business and the end users does not act as a customer. What do I mean by that? I guess in a transformation program, we need them to be part and parcel of the delivery team. If they're sitting on the side and say, I will wait in 2 years' time once you guys have finished your transformation, and I will critique and provide my feedback, then the likelihood is that your change management and business change management exercise, your communication and your adoption strategies are likely to fail, right? So we need stakeholders that are fully empowered to be a key representative in delivery, right? They need to be able to represent their prospective business unit and their desires, right? And their key priorities on the program on a day-to-day basis. This ensures that when we deliver, right, we deliver key outcomes that respective business unit require. That means we can work hand in hand with the change management exercise to, get the impact assessment, get the, what's in it for me, right? What is the, going to be the key selling point of the capabilities to get adoption going. And if that starts at the very beginning, as opposed to be an afterthought, you are 2 or 3 steps ahead of trying to, ensure adoption, ensure the business are on board on the entire journey.
Okay. I think we'll probably do one more then. So if you're doing a transformation that involves a large data migration, what methods or how do you mitigate the risk of that?
It's a good question. Typically, all of our customers will end up doing a large data migration as part of this program. We tend to work very closely with customers in terms of, you know, ETL type activities. How do we look at the extract, transform, and load? We certainly own the sort of load side of it. We work very closely with clients and sometimes SI partners on the transform, and then we help with the customer in terms of the extract. And typically customers know the extract side better than we do. So we make sure that we work in a partnership with customers and SI partners to make sure that each of us do the role which is most appropriate for us. And then going back to the earlier points around simplification, it's what we've got to do as part of the transform is make sure that it's not garbage in, garbage out kind of thing, or garbage out, garbage in. In this case, you've got to make sure as part of the extract that we fundamentally look at what the quality of the data is that's coming from the legacy systems, and make sure that, you know, to the earlier points of what we're saying is we're not actually trying to recreate the past, we're trying to create the future. And we have to recognize that sometimes with migrations, you might have a legacy product which is used by one customer, which you definitely don't want to bring forward. And we look at some of the activities around how do you move that customer onto different products going into the future model. So it comes down to business decisions that are driving this, not so much technology decisions, because if all we're going to do is replicate the past, then we're going to spend an awful lot of time building features, and that's not really what we're out to do.
Okay, thank you, Gary. So I think that brings us to the end. Once again, thank you everyone for tuning in today, and thank you to Rama and Gary for the presentation. If anyone has any further questions that they'd like to ask, please don't hesitate to email us at marketing@cloudsense.com, and we'll try to respond to you. But otherwise, I'll just say goodbye, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.